I was doing the grunt work because while I'm working, I'm wiping a butt. I'm cleaning a diaper.
Yes.
I mean, I'm literally bringing, because I didn't have an office for, the first year and a half. I'm literally bringing the baby with me to Starbucks
Mhm.
to go meet clients.
Yeah.
And, things are happening in the middle of these meetings. And it was wild. I was shocked at how understanding the clients really were. I
Yeah.
was shocked. I really didn't expect that. I thought it was going to make me look like I was not professional, but I mean, the clients I was attracting seemed to be just fine with it.
Welcome to the Texas Lawyer Podcast, where we share stories from lawyers who choose to practice law in the great state of Texas. I'm your host, Cheryl McGurr, and today we're talking with an attorney whose journey through practicing law has led to her handling a variety of cases. Today we're talking with Shanna Valentine. Welcome to the podcast, Shanna.
Thank you, Cheryl.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your life before you started practicing law? What did it look like before you even made the decision?
Oh, well, before I made the decision, I was 12 years old.
Oh, all
I knew,
right.
yes, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer very early on. We had a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but we had pretty big case happen in my family. It's actually very sad. I have an aunt who was, I don't know, can you say it? Murdered? Can
Oh,
you say that?
wow.
Yeah. When I was 5 years old, it was a domestic violence dispute between her and my uncle. And so from very early on, it was kind of like I had our family very heavily involved in the criminal justice system and kind of what that looks like. So starting off with that, I thought, man, I really want to do something with criminal law. And then, in the 90s, Matlock was really big. And I love Matlock. I mean, he solved every crime except for one. And so I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be Matlock because although, it sounds great to be on the prosecution side, for me, it was very much like I don't want to ever see an innocent person go to prison. And so I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do criminal justice. I'm going to be a criminal defense attorney. That was kind of the whole idea the whole way through law school. And then I got out, and that is not how, what panned out for me, I guess. It's not like the movies. And I thought it was like the movies. And so when I realized very early on that it's going to take a whole lot of clients for me to make any money and put a dent in my student loans, that's when I decided maybe I need to start practicing a different area of law. And so one of my
Yeah.
colleagues, was nice and reached out to me and had this family law case and said, "Hey, can you do this divorce?" And I was like, "I can do anything that's going to pay me." And so I started taking on family law cases, and that's how I first got into family law.
Well, let's go back a little bit. What were some of the deciding factors in choosing to actually pursue a law degree, go to law school? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome in that process?
Well, there's certain things about myself that I'm very well aware of. Like I know that I would be a terrible employee. Um, it'd be difficult for somebody to tell me to be at work at 8 a.m. every single day and I'd be on time because I'm a Virgo. So I'm optimistic all the time. I always think I have enough time to get to the office, and if I had to be an employee, that'd be very difficult for me. But I also knew that if I was going to be working outside the home, that it was going to have to be something that allowed for a flexible schedule because I was not raised in a very traditional household. And that's what I wanted to have. I wanted to be able to provide that. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have the traditional, wife and mother role. And so for me to do that, it was going to have to be some job that allowed some flexibility if I was going to work. And so it really, that's kind of where it's interesting to say. I would say that's where it fell into place. I really have always known I wanted to be an attorney, though. Really, truly. I've always known that. I also always knew I wanted to own my own firm because I wanted to be able to have a traditional lifestyle. Um, what happened was we had an unexpected pregnancy in law school. And so then it kind of fast tracks everything.
Yeah,
At first you think,
absolutely.
well,
That will
I'm
change a
going to,
few things.
oh, yeah, because you're thinking, well, I'm going to go to law school and then I'm going to get out. I'm going to go work for this big firm. And, and then in maybe 5 years when I know everything, then I'm going to open up my own law firm. But it fast tracked me because I had gone to school in Florida. We found out my last semester that we were expecting. Instantly, I'm like, well, I don't really want to raise a baby with no family in Miami, Florida. And so we left Miami and we moved back to Texas, where we're both originally from, but neither one of us are from the Austin area. We thought it'd be great to kind of split the baby in a way because one family is from East Texas, the other part of the family is from North Texas. So this is like in the middle, even though we're a little closer to North Texas than we are East Texas. But we moved here, and I actually was just a stay-at-home mom while I was trying to take the bar here. I was pregnant for the first 5 months, and then took the bar after being back in this state. I want to say about 9 months later. So I already had the baby, and then had her for when she was about a year old was when I found out I had passed the bar. So it was October of 2013 when I found out I had passed the bar.
So, what made you decide to attend law school out of state? Was there a particular reason or some kind of impetus that?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, I thought I'm done with Texas. you know, you're 22 years old. You think you're done. I'm there's bigger and better things out there. So I moved away from Texas. I loved Miami because I have some distant family there. So a great uncle who was there at the time, a second cousin who was a professor at the university I decided to go to. I liked the fact that the university was Catholic because I had gone to just a traditional public undergrad. But no, it was really just, you know what, I'm going to go out on a whim and I'm going to do something that's very outside of what I would normally do because I feel that I'm always very predictable. And so I thought two things happened. Number one, I chose to go to an out of state school. But number two, I actually took a gap year also. And that gap year terrified my parents. They're thinking, what did we do? We just paid for a criminal justice degree. What is she going to do with criminal justice? Because what are you going to do with criminal justice unless you want to be a police officer? And I didn't. And so then I went and I was a nanny. I was a nanny for that gap year, and it was one of the greatest years. And it really helped me. It's part of too what helped me decide so quickly that I was going to have my own practice once I got thrown a little bit of a curveball because I realized how important family was. At the time, I was nannying for a family where the mom had just found out she had stage 4 breast cancer.
Oh,
She
man.
survived it. It was the same strand that her mom had that her mom didn't survive. So it was a huge deal. And yeah, it just really taught me the importance of family and just that family time. I've never been married to work because of my experience when I was a nanny.
So, when you decided to move back to Texas, you took the bar, you passed the bar, and you just started doing some family law. What did that look like for you, the beginning of your practice?
Well,
And what are
the
some of
money
the
was
challenges that you had to overcome?
Well, the first I'll say, a positive was money was really good because it's steady. That's one thing I really liked about family law. I loved the fact that for every hour that you work, you get paid. In personal injury, which is what I do now, it's not like that. So, initially, some of the challenges, of course, is finding business. I had some really lucky breaks early on. I became really good friends with this woman. You know her, Mary Dale. And so I met Mary through a networking group that I just kind of tripped and fell into. And she offered me my first legitimate office. She subleased to me. And I remember just thinking, wow, she wants $600 a month in rent. How am I ever going to afford this? And then I started thinking, well, if I'm billing back then, I was billing like 200 an hour. I'm like, well, if I'm billing 200 an hour, okay, if it's going to get me 3 hours worth of work, I guess I can afford it. So that was kind of, getting the legitimate office was really nice. Making sure I was in the proximity of people like you, because that was around the time I met you, Mary, some of the other lawyers in the area. That really helped because it helped legitimize me so that people trusted me. I didn't have to sell myself as hard because one of y'all were referring business to me and you got to know me just by kind of networking and just being out there and taking little things here and there and seeing my face in the courtroom. But yeah, I would say early on that was thankfully it was I got some lucky breaks because I met some people who were very helpful.
Yeah, I think that who you meet early on in your career can make or break how you feel about the
Yeah.
practice of law overall. When you started working with clients directly, and I'm guessing you did that right away because you started your own firm. I think that's something
Yeah.
you have over someone who goes to work in a larger firm. Sometimes they're not working directly with the clients. The more senior attorneys do that, and then the junior attorneys doing the grunt work, the hard
Yes.
drafting, the memos, the briefs, the
Well, I
research.
was doing the grunt work because while I'm working, I'm wiping a butt. I'm cleaning a diaper.
Yes.
I mean, I'm literally bringing, because I didn't have an office for the first year and a half. I'm literally bringing the baby with me to Starbucks to
Mhm.
go meet clients.
Yeah.
And, things are happening in the middle of these meetings. And it was wild. I was shocked at how understanding the clients really were. I
Yeah.
was shocked. I really didn't expect that. I thought it was going to make me look like I was not professional, but I mean, the clients I was attracting seemed to be just fine with it. And I guess if others weren't, I'll never know because they just didn't hire me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I think the client in family law especially, I think at that point they're real. They want you to be real, and so that certainly lends to who you are when you're holding your
Yeah.
baby and saying, I got to go change my baby and then we'll finish this conversation. It
Hmm.
shows that you are professional and that you were getting the job done, but you also know how to multitask. And that's, I think, one of the biggest talents or skills a lawyer can have is how to
Yeah.
multitask, especially
Agreed.
as a
And to seem like a real person, that I think sometimes people put us in our ivory tower. Um, they have a general idea of what they think an attorney is like. And I think if you can break that, that's really what differentiates you. And it just keeps them wanting to come back, keeps them referring their family and friends. I mean, it's a little different, the type of law I'm in now. Thankfully, um, in family law, what is it the saying? They say that you see the best people at the worst time of their life, right?
yeah.
For me, it's very different because the damage has already been done. I mean, there's nothing I can do to undo the car accident or the dog bite or the harm or whatever. So now I'm able to kind of guide them through the process to getting better. And I feel like if I can just relate to them and show them that I have some empathy, it seems to go so much like they just want a real person. And it does. It goes a lot further than them feeling like they can't reach out to you, they can't talk to you, you're not just a normal human. It's also helpful. I see a lot of clients out and about. I mean, I see them at HEB, I see them at Target because I practice in the same area that I live in.
Mhm. I do
So,
think that makes
some
a
of them are
big
friends and
difference.
neighbors.
Well, you
Yeah.
you referred to this change in practice that you did. Why don't you tell us what was the instigating factor in you saying, I'm going to have to
Yeah.
change my practice, or I want to change my
So I am from Southeast Texas, and Southeast Texas, the Beaumont area, is known for massive litigation. I mean, there's refineries and factories and all of those things. And so, there's a lot of personal injury lawyers in that area. And it's kind of known as a rich man's game in the sense that like if you don't have millions of dollars behind you to put out the commercials and to put out the ads, you're not going to be able to compete. And so in my mindset, you had to have financial backing to be able to be in this area of law. Well, so I'm in Mary Dale's office. I'm very quickly getting burned out of family law. Family law, I am not the personality that deals well with those types of cases because I have a tendency to take my work home. And so if it's high conflict work, I'm going to bring that home. So, it was just the timing was perfect for something else to walk in the door. And what happened was, remember, I was subleasing an office. So, right across the hall, Mary subleased to another attorney, somebody who was fresh out of a big firm that did personal injury. And so he knew how to be an attorney and he knew how to practice personal injury, but he had no clue on how to advertise, how to manage a practice, how to acquire clients, all the things that you learn from the business standpoint. And so he came to me and he said, Hey, how about you teach me how to run a business and I'll teach you how to do personal injury? And I'm like, Oh, okay. So, again, I'm still taking on family cases because I have to feed myself. But at this time period, he's teaching me how to do personal injury cases, how from top to bottom. And so for a moment in time, we had teamed up and we did have our own firm. I've again very quickly learned that you have to be in business with like-minded people.
Mhm.
And so it kind of ran its course and we parted amicably and I went about my way and he went about his, but it was such a great opportunity for me because without him, I would have never learned how to do personal injury and I would have never gotten my foot in the door. And so, I mean, once I started getting my first, I'd say dozen clients in personal injury, I was done taking on family law clients and I've been doing personal injury ever since.
Yeah. And so, what is it about the personal injury cases that really lights your fire as a litigator
Yeah.
or as a
Oh,
lawyer? Because you're not really a litigator, are you? You don't
no,
let.
well, I used to have to be. I used to have to be a litigator. I mean, you know that about me. It's not my favorite because for me, again, the idea of being in the courtroom and the jet and you've got your legally blonde Elle Woods moment. I love all of those things. But that's not really how it is. And also the biggest thing for me, again, I really wanted to have a traditional home life. It takes a lot of prep over the weekends, a lot of prep over the holidays, a lot of prep, late nights. And that's not very conducive to being a mom and a wife. And so I did that for quite some time. Um, but then what happened was, remember when I told you that one of my colleagues referred a family law case to me way back, and I got my very first family law case. That was probably 2014. Well, that guy's name was Nick Reed. I went to law school with Nick Reed. And so Nick, I always kept in touch with him, but I guess it was about 2018. My practice was very busy and I was getting more and more cases that required litigation because in personal injury, not all cases, of course, not all cases need to go to litigation. So I'm thinking, well, I'm kind of a one-man show. I mean, it's just me and a paralegal. And so I called up Nick and I said, hey, would you be interested in co-counseling these litigation cases with me? And yeah, they were on board for it. I had quite a few that I could send over to them. And I really did have a very good setup because what we did was I would co-counsel a case once it went to litigation. And then we would split the attorney's fees between the two firms 50-50. And I mean, I'm only one person and Nick and Mike are two people. So I was making the better of the deal between, all three of us. But fast forward a couple of years and the guys, they kind of approached me with the idea of teaming up together. And at first I was a little reluctant because I'm a mild control freak. And again, you have to be in business with like-minded people. And you don't really know if you're like-minded just by, interactions working on cases. But after a little while, we decided it would be best. And I've loved it ever since because now I do all pre-litigation. Nick and Mike do all the litigation. So I don't have the late nights. I don't have the long hours. I'm very 9 to 5. I like the pre-litigation because I like getting them on. I love the clients when they first come in and I can calm their nerves. That's the best part of it. And then setting them up with a plan because I'm very, very strict, like strategy driven. So getting them set up with a plan of this is, they need to go to treatment, helping them navigate that because a lot of them don't know what in the world they're supposed to do next or how they're supposed to pay for it or where they're supposed to go. And so I love the planning aspect of it. And of course, my absolute favorite part, and you're going to appreciate me saying this, I never once have to ask them to fill up a retainer. Never.
Yes, that is an appreciation that I
Never.
have for that.
Never.
It's great.
I give them money. They don't give me money. And it's such a unique area of law from with that aspect of it that I mean, if I could think of another area where I could, do well financially and have the same hours, maybe I would entertain, adding that. But it's a very unique position to be in where you never once have to ask the client for money
Mhm.
because that is just I'm not good at it. I'm not good at sales. Um, I feel very uncomfortable talking about money with people. If it's, if I feel like someone's having to charge something on their credit card, I'm the type I'm going to lower how much I'm asking for,
Mhm.
and that's not good business. So personal injury suits me very, very well.
That is so great. So, how do you think that will evolve for you over the next decade? Do you see yourself staying in the same role?
Yeah, it's funny because if you would have asked Shanna 5 years ago, Shanna 5 years ago was like, man, I want to have five offices and I want to have 15 employees or however many, and I want to be making X amount of dollars. And I don't feel the same way anymore. Now I'm very happy with how things are. I make good enough money to where I'm very comfortable. I like my daily routines of being able to go into the office at a certain time, but also leave at a certain time. I love the flexibility. I would love it if I could just ride this gravy train for the next 10 years. I mean, someone could fast track it if they send me a few amazing stellar cases, then maybe it could be when I'm 45. But I say that I would like to be in a position where I'm just taking on cases here and there, probably by the time I'm in my early 50s. Because again, in a perfect world, my daughter will, maybe have found someone by then and started her own family. And then I get to just she's an only child. So then I can just join her and help raise her kids and she can do whatever it is she wants to do. And mom and dad can step in and help raise them.
Yeah, that's exciting. So, what advice would you give to someone who has seen Matlock or has seen Law and Order or um,
Yeah.
the one I loved was I can't even think of it now.
Don't say Columbo because I loved Columbo too.
Oh, I did love Columbo, but that it
Hmm.
wasn't really law. That was more solving
No.
crimes and the gotcha moment. One more thing, I loved that. I love that those moments. But the practice was on in the late 90s.
Yes, I
And
did
I
love The Practice. I
loved the
loved that
practice
show.
that really I wanted to do some of that type of law. I loved the courtroom drama, the courtroom speeches that would be given, the closing arguments. Some of those were really
Yes,
great. And
yes,
that's something that people see the practice, they see Matlock, they see Law and Order, and they get in their minds, this is what the practice of law is. So, what advice would you give someone who is maybe at the stage where they don't know a lot of real lawyers? Because that was me. I didn't know
yeah,
any lawyers personally to like go hang out in their office or intern with. I just knew what I saw on TV and the people I met in business passing. If I happened to run into an attorney, I would say, would you like being an attorney? I would quiz
yeah.
them. But so what advice would you give someone who is thinking, I think I want to be a lawyer. I see these lawyers on TV. I think I want to do this. What advice would you give?
Oh, well, that's kind of a tough one, because I mean, first of all, you said a question a second ago that I think, yes, it's a wonderful question. Like, do you like being a lawyer? But anyone who asks that question should say, why? 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 What is it about it that you like? Because, I know some people who love being an attorney, but hate their job. So, it's also, I think my advice would, well, first of all, I think everybody should be a lawyer. I say that all the time. I think, especially for little girls who are thinking about, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, I'm trying my darndest to get my kid to take my seat one day. I would love for her to take my job because it allows for, again, flexibility. It's a generational thing. I mean, I'm a millennial and millennials are, they say, like the first generation that's very much into, yes, I want to work, but also how do I balance that with my hobbies and my home life and my family? And like they were always very mindful of trying to balance it all. I think generations before me very much focused on the money, getting the job done. How many hours are you there? So, what I would say is for any little girl who thinks that she wants to work, I say get a law degree. And the reason I say is because you're basically qualified to do any job that you want to do. I mean, you could be a lobbyist, you could get into politics, you could be a professor, you can be a teacher, you can be a lawyer. I know plenty of females that I went to law school with who don't even practice law, but having that Juris Doctorate behind them makes them qualified to have almost any job that it is they want. Um, I also would say for, even young men who are looking at the job, I mean, you want to have something that is going to be able to give you some financial freedom. And, I do think that the vast majority of attorneys have the ability to have financial freedom. They can, because again, you can always start off your job, you can start your career in one area of law, and if it doesn't suit you, you can switch to another area of law. And yeah, you have to take some, classes or some credits or something like that to be able to understand what it is you're doing, but you don't have to get a whole new degree. And that's one of the things that I love about a law degree. I mean, you can shift and do almost anything. I know this one woman who she had a law degree, or has, you never lose it. She has a law degree. And after she decided to have a family, she kind of went on a hiatus and became a teacher. And then her husband, they raised their family. Her husband passed away. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to get back into law now. She gets back into law. She started off doing estate planning and then thought after a little while, this doesn't suit me. And Cheryl, she got herself into family law. So we'll see how long it lasts.
Right. I have to say that I myself stumbled into family law.
I
I
think a lot of people do.
it's of all the types of attorneys that the average person is going to interact with, a
Yep.
family law attorney is probably, and that's unfortunate because that means you have homes that are being fractured. And that's the sad part of it. I always tell people I am not a fan of divorce. I
Yeah.
help people get through divorce, but I'm not a fan of it. I'm a fan of if you can make your marriage work, you should make your marriage work, especially if you have children. A one two-parent household is hands down by any study anywhere far better for that child. Um,
Yeah.
and this, oh, it's better for the children if you're fighting too much. Well, don't fight. It's not like you're
Yeah.
a child yourself. You can control yourself. Um, and you can find happiness, but sometimes you can't because it takes
Sometimes it's
two.
not you. Sometimes it's them.
That's exactly right. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's them, and so you can only control yourself, and that's something that even as a 50 something now, I'm learning. Again, I can only control myself. I can't control other people, and I have to tell my clients that you couldn't control your husband while you were married to him. I can't control him now that you're not going to be married to him anymore. There's only
Yeah.
there's only a few things that the law can do for you in this situation. I can't make him not be a jerk. I can't make her not be a jerk. So it's challenging in those situations where divorce is necessary, or you have a situation where for whatever reason you're raising a child in two separate households and you need some guidelines. Because when everybody's getting along, it's all well and good, but nobody gets
Yes.
along on every single subject all the time. And if you don't have a history of working well together, then you need some guidelines. And so having to practice family law has been a challenge, but it's also been the most common type of law. What's interesting is I've always done civil litigation. So I was a Baylor lawyer. I am a Baylor lawyer. They trained us to be civil litigators. I did not go to Baylor Law to become a litigator.
Oh, I was going to say, I hope that my daughter goes to Baylor, actually. I've been working
I
on that.
I love Baylor Law. It was a great experience. But they taught me to love litigation. We were required to do the litigation practice court, and I did it, and I
Mhm.
did well at it. And I had taken one or two classes undergrad where I did a little bit of like kind of
Did
mock
you do moot
trial.
court?
I
Was it
didn't
moot
do
court?
court. We did like these trial reincarnations, like we
Yeah.
retried cases that had been tried. And one of the law professors that was an adjunct teaching our undergrad program was like, you need to go be a trial lawyer. And I was like, oh, well, what kind of law do you do? And he did estate planning. And I was like, well, I like the kind of law you do. And so I went to I specialized in estate planning, which is interesting because
Yeah.
now, lately, I'm litigating. I'm still litigating. I've always had, in addition to my family law cases, I've always had a lot of civil litigation going on. I've always had at least one to two somewhat contentious civil litigation cases, meaning there's a property dispute or there's a
Yeah.
business dispute, or lately there's a probate dispute or a guardianship
Oh, Lord.
dispute.
Yes.
And
And
I
it's very hard to find someone who will take those on.
Well, Cheryl is taking those on, and it's not because I've been advertising them for. I've been of counsel with Fair and Sheehan for years,
Mhm.
and we would help each other out. If I had a probate, she would help me in handled most of that work. And if she had a family law case come in, but lately we've both been getting in a ton of these litigation cases where families are not acting very nicely towards one another. And there's malfeasance, maybe fraud. There's a lot
Crazy.
going on. And so it feels familiar to family law because it's all these dynamics and
Yes.
personality and things that you're dealing with, but a different phase of it. I'm not dealing with the
Well,
best
and I mean,
interest of the child.
even in family law, you see a lot of it boils down to money. And
Oh, yeah.
obviously, it's the exact same thing when you're dealing with
Yes. Yeah, it's
anything estate.
definitely more. So the upside to family law is that I can say, if there's children, I usually can tell my
Hmm.
client, listen, we need to think about what is the best interest of your children here, because that's what the
Yeah.
court is going to look at. Well, I don't have that when I'm looking at a contested will or, fraud in the inducement or whatever the cause of action is we're looking at with these cases lately. It's a definite switch
Yeah.
from best interest of the child because, as you know, when you're doing family law cases, the overlying principle is what is in the best interest of the child. So that gives the judges a very large swath to make their
Hmm.
rulings in. And when you don't have that overarching guideline, then they're looking at a lot more specific facts, procedure, what
Yeah.
facts fit the law exactly. And we're not looking to paint outside the lines necessarily as much. And so it's really been interesting. The volume of cases that I'm doing that are outside family law. But again, I'm meeting the types of people where let me say that better. I'm the type of lawyers the average person might need. The person
Yeah.
that's looking because there's something going on. That's a situation we all deal with is death, and
I
caring
think
for
a lot of people
elderly.
too are very nervous when their loved one passes. And even if there is a will, there's a lot of personalities that go into it. And so they're
Yeah,
like, well, I remember, I've got that little sibling who, hasn't talked to mom and dad in X amount of years. I know they're going to be coming back up. I feel like, it probably always happened. I'm at that age now, though, where I have friends whose parents are starting to pass away. And so you hear about it more and
yeah.
more and more.
Yeah, and I feel like that could be it as well. My parents are in their 80s, and my husband's parents, his mom passed away recently, and so it's put us personally into this area
Yeah.
where I have litigated and practiced as the lawyer in these situations. We don't have any family drama going on that needs to be litigated, but just the normal things you have to do when someone
Yeah.
passes away. It's overwhelming, and when you're in the stage of grief as well, it is definitely when seeking out an attorney is advisable because you
I
need
have
someone
always
who's a
said,
little bit separated.
I have always said if somebody really despises me, they're going to end up making me the executor of their will. And lo and behold, my parents had a trust. And guess what?
Yes.
I was like, yeah, and they know how I feel about that. But
Yeah.
I'm the oldest. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Well, and
I
you're the
inherit the
lawyer.
role.
So
Yeah, there's that too.
it's expected that you probably know a few things and you run your own business, and that is very key. The fact that you're capable and you manage
Yeah.
things well.
I
And
say
so
though, in my personal life, I'm a pretty big softie though, so that could be good and bad because every family has that one black sheep, and I don't want to deal with that.
sometimes it's a lack of communication. And you know, I tell you what, it is very hard to get past that lack of communication because when you are expecting bad things from the other side and they're
Oh yeah,
expecting bad things from you, you have no trust. And to try to get past that trust, well, maybe there's malfeasance going on, but maybe there's not. Maybe
but
you
see
just,
that okay, but that right there also is why, like, I bring it back to this whole personality, personal injury land. I mean, I had a client last week. We didn't get, so when you start negotiations, you have like 30 days for the insurance company to respond to you. Well, day 31 comes along. I call the client. I'm like, hey, we haven't heard anything from them yet. Do you think they're going to deny the claim? They're getting emotional. They think there's all this I guess motivation, like ill intent behind it. And I was like, no, no, they're probably just on vacation. And I love that. I love that this is very analytical. It's just a business decision.
Mhm.
I have an insurance company on the other side. They're either going to pay X amount of money or they're not. It's
Mhm.
This was the type of law that was made for me. Because I am just not, it's not that I'm not emotional, it's that I can get emotional. I can get invested that way. And
Mhm.
so if I'm going to go to work, I need it to be something that is very, wouldn't call it black and white because it's not. Again, it's all about valuations of injuries and things like that. And then you can ask 12 people what a broken arm is worth, and you're going to get 12 very different answers. So
Absolutely.
it's not black and white, but I love the fact that it's not emotional. It's just it's just money. It's just business decisions.
Mhm. So do you find, and I think it's interesting because it's business decisions, but that doesn't mean there's not malfeasance somewhere along the way, or because sometimes those business decisions are
Mhm.
motivating insurance companies to
Yeah.
not step up when they should be stepping up. Do you
We kind of have
find that the malfeasance in the industry is prevalent, or do you find that um, it's it's more of an odd thing?
well, I think there's a lot of the typical lawyer answer. Well, it depends. So, you know, because I
Absolutely.
feel like number one, it depends on who the insurance company is. They are not all created equal. Um, there are some that are kind of your minimum policy. They don't even run a credit score to insure someone. They're super inexpensive. Well, they don't want to pay out. So if you get hit by a carrier like that, yeah, we're probably going to have to go to litigation just to get them to pay what they should pay. Whereas you have some that, like, there's some where you have to meet certain requirements to be insured by them. Maybe you have to be a member. Sometimes they make you pay for a membership or things like that. Those are I would call the better insurance companies to go up against because their interest is not necessarily, obviously, everybody wants to save money, but their primary interest is not simply saving money. It's also about protecting their insured because, at the end of the day, if your insurance company does not pay your claim, and my client decides to sue you, you're going to personally be named on that lawsuit.
Mhm.
And yes, the insurance company is going to indemnify you up to the amount that you purchased in your policy. So, for instance, so that I'm not speaking just legal jargon, in Texas, everybody has to have at least 30,000 in bodily injury coverage. Okay. But if you go and cause a multi-car collision, and you have people with fractures or surgeries or whatever, well, 30,000 isn't going to go very far. Even in that instance, it'll be what they call a 30/60 policy, but that means that the most any one person is getting is 30,000, but the most that's paid out for the entire accident is 60. Well, that again, it depends on how many claimants you have, but that may not go very far. And so if your insurance company does not pay that amount of money, I'm going to sue you. And it's possible. Now, there's a lot of, red tape you have to go through, and it's way down the road, but it is always possible that your insurance company ends up paying me that policy, but now I can go after you for the additional amount that my client is now owed because maybe this client has litigation expenses or had, some significant injuries. So if we go all the way to trial and a jury comes back and says, this is $100,000 worth of damages and you only had 30, I'm going to get 30 from your insurance company. Now 70 is going to come from you. And all of that could have been resolved if their insurance company would have just paid. Because what would have happened is if their insurance company just paid, I'm going to take that money because that is guaranteed money. Literally, the insurance company writes me a check and I don't have to worry about it clearing. I know it's going to clear. It's going to be mailed to me within a week or two and it's going to clear and I'm going to give it to the client. And then we can go look for other avenues of recovery, like maybe first party insurance or something like that, you know? But the insurance companies who want to save their insureds the grief and the hassle of having to go through litigation, they're the ones who pay. And so I will say, not all insurance companies are created equal. But sometimes, even with those better carriers, you have an adjuster who just will not send you a fair offer. And so you're forced to litigate in those instances. But the good news is that a lot of times, by the time we get to litigation, we have people who are involved in the case on the other side representing the insurance company who, A, are decision makers. So that's nice. They actually have the authority to give you or offer you a settlement that's enough to make the client satisfied. And also, they understand the ins and outs of the legal system. So, it's not, yes, it is about numbers, but you don't want that big bad insurance company to look all big and bad in front of a
Mhm.
jury. And so they understand that. And so, as a business decision, they're like, okay, let's find what amount we can offer this person, this claimant, to make them stop pursuing us through litigation. I mean, most of the time thankfully, we never have to go to trial. I mean, it's very, very rare that we have to go to trial because most cases that go to trial, it's you're not arguing over how much money, you're more arguing over, well, are you even entitled to the money to begin with? Did
Mhm.
this person actually get injured from this accident? What was the mechanism of the injury? What was the mechanism of the accident? And so, I mean, if you don't have those questions in your case and it's pretty clear cut, the likelihood is your case, thankfully, is not going to have to go all the way to trial.
Well, that's good. I think something you said, if you can get a fair settlement offer on the other side, and it's
Yeah.
like that for any litigation case, you can
Mhm.
be the most reasonably minded person.
Yeah.
However, if the other side is not making any kind of reasonable offer, it makes it very difficult to make any type of settlement. And
Well,
so,
that's why personalities are so important, in this area too, because I very often will tell my clients, listen, if I were in your shoes, this is what I would do. Or if I were, and I mean, I like to think the majority of them trust me,
I'm sure.
but because they don't know the value of their case. I mean, you see what's on TV, and then you always, everybody hears the success story, but the vast majority of cases are not like that. The vast majority are getting hit by somebody who's just a regular Joe Schmo, and they have a minimum policy, and you're gonna cap out their policy and you're gonna have to go to your own insurance company. It's a lot less sexy than you probably think that it is. But again, it goes back to the analytical part why I love it so much.
Yeah, I think that's funny. It's a lot less sexy than we thought it was when we first went to law school. We thought it was a
Oh yeah.
pretty sexy career, a pretty exciting career. And I think one thing that you and I have talked about in the past is the ability to help people in a time when they really need help. And so that really makes all the difference in the world, being able to step in and help someone when they need an advocate on their side.
I'll say, there's a lot of room for corruption in my area of law because there's a lot of money to be made. That's the big one. And you get those individuals. Sometimes it's lawyers, sometimes it's doctors who, I mean, if I could get somebody to come in and do X amount of treatment and the doctor, bills them tens of thousands of dollars, I mean, the doctor is going to get paid, right? And then you better believe the lawyers are also always going to make sure that they get paid. And so it's very important that you find somebody who can represent you. Who has some morality to them,
Mhm.
because I hear about it all the time where somebody comes to us and they're like, well, I had this case 2 years ago. And my doctor bill was 15,000 and they got paid that. And then my lawyer took 10,000 or 12,000, whatever 40% is of what they got them. And then they walked away with $4,000, $5,000 when they were the one who had a permanent injury. Because when you sign that contract that says my lawyer can take 40%, that is an enforceable contract.
Yeah.
And so, your lawyer doesn't have to lower their attorney's fees just to make you happy. When they have thousands and thousands of clients, your 1-star review isn't going to make much of a difference to them. They have thousands of clients. They can bury that, and if they have enough money, they can maybe even get it taken off Google. But so that's why I say when you are talking this kind of money, you really need to have somebody who, yes, they know how to advocate for you, but also has some compassion because, sometimes you do get capped out on how much you can get because you can only get the amount that the maximum amount is what somebody purchased. And so, I don't love cutting our attorney's fees, but at the end of the day, if I have to cut my fees some to make somebody else have enough money to cover future care or to satisfy them, then, that's what I'm going to do. But I think also that's just the culture of our business, like our Eli Valentine and Reed, rather than these other ones who are very big and like have a big payroll they have to make. I mean, we're 3 partners and a paralegal. That's it. And so when the 3 of us get together, if it's like, well, we really need to cut here on this fee so that we can get so and so the money because they need to have surgery, then I mean the 3 partners get together, we make the decision, and that's it. That's all she wrote. And again, when you have these bigger businesses, you have to be careful where you start cutting attorney's fees and cutting finances because you have 20 supporting staff and you have to make payroll. You have to pay for health insurance. You have to pay for pensions or whatever 401k plan. And so there's just not the flexibility built in, I feel like, with those bigger boxes than there is with people that are a lot more boutique.
It sounds like you have found a really good niche for yourself in the personal injury area. Having the smaller firm, you've got some backup, but you also are able to keep that firm culture that you really wanted to create as a young lawyer.
Yes. I mean, we say we're boutique. That's exactly what we are. It's very mom and pop. When you call, most likely you're going to talk to the paralegal first because she's the one answering the phones. But if it rings 4 times because she's on the phone, well, one of us is going to answer the phone.
Yeah.
And we like to keep it that way. Again, we've all had the discussion, the 3 of us. Do we want this thing to be bigger? Do we want to keep it the way it is? And we're all very happy. When we decided to join forces, we went to my office and sat in the back room and we're like, all right, Mike, if you can do anything within this practice that you like, anything you wanted to do, what would it be? He's like, I love litigating. I'm like, okay. And Nick is kind of our brainiac. He's like, well, I love researching and writing. And I'm like, I don't get that, but okay. And for me, I love client interface. And I do enjoy the marketing. I like the client interface more than I like the marketing. But, for me, it's more of the running of the business, the marketing, the clients. I love that. And so we each have managed to be able to get the best out of what we wanted for this. And so I can see this being something that we all do until we decide to retire. And when that'll be, I have no idea. Nick and I were talking about when we thought Mike might retire. He's turning 50 this year. And I think we both realized that Mike is going to work until Mike can work no more. And it's just because he loves it. He loves it. He lives for this job.
That's the way to do it, to love what you do every day and to be excited about the work you're doing and the people that you're doing that work with.
Yes, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, I want to thank my guests for being here today. And with that, the Texas Lawyer Podcast is adjourned for today. What's your biggest takeaway? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure and leave a review, like, subscribe, and share us with your friends. Thanks so much, Shanna. And everyone else, have a great day.
Cheryl.